One, two, one, two. Welcome back, everybody. My name is Cory, and in today's video, we're going to be talking about a very important topic, which is the goal of holistic self-improvement. As you saw my first episode on holistic self-improvement, we've went through the human organism, or like who we are as human beings, quite in depth. In this episode, we're going to be going through the goal of this whole life on Earth. I've touched on it a little bit in the first episode as well, but I would like to extrapolate a little more so that we have a clearer picture of what's going on, what we're working towards, and how things work. So, first off, I would like to give a little simple illustration of a graph that I've drawn. Very simple graph, but it's a very important one. So let's get right into it. So the graph looks like this. It's just stupid. So this is the first episode, like who we are. Today we're going to be talking about this part of the graph. Number 3, what our goal is when it comes to holistic self-improvement. And this part, the second part, which represents this sine wave that has this straight line going across it, is the journey that we have to take to get to our goal. So, who we are, what we're going towards, and how do we get there? Pretty self-explanatory. So, what's the goal of this journey? Well, today, to summarize, I'm going to be talking about what is the Matrix. So we have a lot of talk nowadays about the Matrix, both the movie, both like the whole hustle culture, Andrew Tate, red/black pill, sigma male, Matrix, whatever. I'm just throwing some word salads out there, but you get my point. So there's a lot of talk about the Matrix and what it is, but not many people talk about the real Matrix, or rather matrices, like the original matrices that we are in. So in today's video, I'm going to be talking about what is the matrix within and what is the matrix without. So there's a matrix within us, and there's a matrix outside of us. And to be quite frank with you, I've already thoroughly explained the matrix within us in the first installment of this series, but I'm going to be taking a different approach and talking about a different perspective from which we can view the matrix within us. And I'm also going to be talking about the Vedic cosmology and explain the matrix outside of us. Furthermore, I'm going to be explaining to you how the two matrices, the one without and within, correlate to each other. And also, we're going to touch a little bit on how we can escape from both, quite frankly. And also, I'm going to be mentioning the pitfalls that you can get into while you're trying to escape from the Matrix. Okay, first off, we live in a prison, or prism. Like, we've all seen the Pink Floyd album cover. There's a prism, there's white light going through it that refracts into this rainbow color. Well, the light, this is actually just an illustration of our state of being at this point in time. Like, this is just the illustration of earthly existence, because the light of our eternal spirit, or Atman, is being dispersed through the instrument of the human body in order to manifest in the material world. So, this is your spirit, this is your body, the prism or prison, and these are your chakras. that are being, refracted, that are just the refracted light of your spirit, with different kind of vibrational frequencies and densities assigned to them, So that's a very, very interesting concept. And if you look at the human organism like that, yeah, it starts to turn the wheels a little bit, right? And from this we can conclude that angels, I'm sorry, there's a typo there. Angels are angles of light with various degrees of luminosity and angles of dispersion, right? Right? Because, yeah, oh my God, I don't think this needs more explanation than that. An angel, and pretty much anything that you see here in this material realm, is just an angle of this eternal light that is being dispersed from a different kind of angle within the matrix or the prism that we are in, with a different degrees of vibrational frequency and luminosity and angle of dispersion. Crazy if you think about it. So angels are just angles of light. Therefore, our body is the temporary prism/prison that our eternal spirit inhabits. The real matrix, as I've already mentioned in the first installment, is the human condition, or the repeating cycle of birth and death, or our spirit wandering through body and body after body after body, wandering aimlessly in the material realm in ignorance. That's the matrix that we're in. That's the situation that we've gotten ourselves into, and this is what we need to get out of, to be quite frank. Let's go to our next slide. This was the matrix within, or like another view on the human organism. And now let's look at the matrix without. It's very interesting. I'm just going to put my head here. As you can see, this image represents like the Vedic perspective on the cosmos. This is not an exact representation of how it looks. Unfortunately, we cannot really display an exact representation of how the universe works here on Earth, because we just don't have the necessary tools to do that, and quite frankly, we're not supposed to be too concerned with that. This is just something that illustrates how things are layered, and how like the cosmos really looks from a Vedic perspective. Not an exact replica, but a very good illustration to just get the point. So we're here at Jambudvip, or Bulok, the earthly realm, which is in the middle, or the Middle Earth. That's what we heard from the Lord of the Rings. This is the Middle Earth. We have 7 places above and 7 below. So, what did I write here? The matrix is the material world, or like darkness. Remember, like our eternal spirit penetrates into the prism, which is darkness, and then the prism refracts our light into the darkness, thus us manifesting as beings in the material realm. And for that reason, I want to read a little bit from Genesis. So this is said in the Bible as well. In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. Now the earth was formless and empty. Darkness was over the surface of the deep, and the Spirit of God was hovering over the waters. So, the earth was dark, it was formless, it was just a dense, dark, etheric matter. And the light of God, and God said, "Let there be light," and there was light. God saw that the light was good, and he separated the light from the darkness. God called the light day, and the darkness he called night. And there was evening, and there was morning, the first day. So yeah, God put light into it, and now we have the yin yang, so the duality and the the dance of light and darkness. And this is how we manifest here. God's light penetrating into the dark, formless matter that is the ether, and then it being refracted into the colors of the rainbow, which are our chakras. Yeah, this is just... Okay, you know, Genesis is a very good thing, but I don't want to read it any further. This like illustrated the point pretty well. And yeah, the whole material world is just darkness. Everything manifests from darkness, and it is light that's penetrating into the darkness and like kind of playing and dancing with the darkness, ebbing and flowing, that creates all that exists really in the material world. And this world of darkness, sometimes referred to as Maya, or the world of illusions, or also samsara, the repeating cycle of birth and death. So, our true eternal spirit light is being projected into this dark, formless void, thus creating a world of illusion where we can play around, do our thing, be our own boss. But that comes with the fact, or like the toll, that the effect of that is that we have to repeatedly be birthed and die until we go back to our eternal abode. So yeah, that's how this works. And now I just want to kind of illustrate how the inner matrix and the outer matrix relate to each other. So, you know, we have this hermetic principle of correspondence. As above, so below. As within, so without. As the universe, so the soul. And, you know, as we could see, like the layers of the universe kind of correlate to our layers of the, you know, human chakra system right here. But I want to illustrate it a little more in the next slide. So the connection between the material and the spiritual realms and the body and the universe. So we have this wonderful image, which is kind of a more detailed version of the other image that I showed of the way the concept of the cosmos. This, once again, is not an accurate representation of how the cosmos looks. This, like, if when you leave the body, this is not what you're going to see, but it illustrates the point. So, you can see that we're right here, Earth in the middle. And how the outside matrix relates to the inside one is through density. So the lower planets are gross, meaning they relate to the first three chakras and the element of earth, water, and fire. So Patal, Rasatal, Mahatal, Talatal, Sutal, Vital, and Atal Lok are all grosser, more dense, more material planes of existence. And from the earth, which is the heart, which is the middle ground, where the subtle and the gross intertwine, is where we can move either above or below. And this is like the transitory place. This is actually a very fortunate birth to be on Earth. And yeah, so in this place, both the gross and the subtle connect. That's why the element of the heart chakra is the air. Because the air is subtle, you can't see it, but you can feel it. But it's also kind of gross, because, you know, it moves everything around. It's a lot more gross than the ether, because the ether is like absolutely unseen. All right, now I'm just going off of a tangent. The point is that we are here in the middle. And from here onwards, these are more etheric realms. So more subtle, more etheric, more like a dream, really. Because, you know, here on Earth, actually, yeah, that's a pretty good point that illustrates it. Here on Earth, we have like the gross material existence. We have the dirt, the water, the fire, the wind blowing, but we also have access to a very subtle, very malleable, very time-space-less realm, which is our dream world, which is the astral plane. We can experience both the gross nature of the material world and the subtle one as well, to different degrees in our dream state. Because when you dream, nothing's like concrete. It's not the laws within a dream are vastly different than the laws in the waking state. And the higher up you go, the more things are like that in your dreams. More things are akin to what things are like in your dreams. And things manifest instantly. So here, in order to manifest something on Earth, there's first a thought, and then there's action. So you have to use your gross material human organisms in order to manifest anything. On the other hand, the more subtle and the more higher the planes go, you manifest through thought. So whatever you think, manifest instantly. So if your thoughts are not sorted, if your thoughts relate to lower, grosser things like murder and stuff like that, then even if you went to more subtle planes, you would cause distress there. Because on subtle planes, thoughts are pure. Thoughts relate to bliss and pleasure and beauty and fractal coherence, not gross, incoherent, disharmonic things. So that's why it's hard to leave the earth, and that's why you're put here to like cleanse your earthly and like your gross thoughts in order for you to qualify to go up to higher and higher realms. And eventually, once you purified yourself enough, your thoughts and your actions, and once you can handle the kind of energy that you get, or like the energetics that are in the environment of the higher planes, you can graduate from this material universe or the land of darkness and go up into the spirit realm, a realm of pure principles. Here, everything is perfect and pure and eternal, right? And light, our eternal spirit light, emanates from this eternal, perfectly coherent place of existence and penetrates into the darkness that is the material universe and refracts its and the material universe refracts our spirit light into different vibrational frequencies and different densities throughout this universe. And we get an avatar or a character that we play, and we can use our free will to align with either the lower nature of our existence or the higher ones, or to leave everything behind and go back to the Godhead, the land of pure principles. Granted, we can only do that if we purify ourselves of the material nature that we've gotten ourselves into. And all the master teachers that you see here, like the Buddha, Nrsimha, Kalki, who else? Varaha, Vamana, Matsya, all the avatars of divine, Krishna, Rama, every single avatar of divine came down into the material realm for that purpose, to show us the way out from this land of illusions, this repeating cycle of birth and death, this toggle between lower and higher and middle and lower and higher and middle, back to our original, perfectly coherent land of pure principles, which is eternal, full of bliss and never-ending joy. Okay. Going back here. So, to summarize, the goal of holistic self-improvement is breaking out of the real matrix through realizing who we are and devotional service to the divine. More on that later. So self-realization literally just means like understanding the information that I just told you. Understanding how the human organism works, how the universe works, how we relate to it, and how we can escape from it. That's self-realization, to be honest. And then not forgetting that through our ignorance. And oh my goodness gracious, Lord Almighty. This is I just wanted to read this little portion from Prashant Trivedi's, PT's book, Scriptures for the Now. And everything that I know comes from him, because he's the perfect one. He's the all-knowing one. He's the one who, he's the captain of the ship with which we can escape the material world. Like, he knows everything there is to know. PT is the greatest. I bow. I truly, truly, truly bow to him. Everything that I say is just a shadow of what he says and he knows. Okay? So, according to him, let's just read this. What is the body for? There are many people on this planet doing many strange things with their body, twisting and turning it about, putting all kinds of substances in it, treating it like a rental car without ever asking the basic question, what is the body for? And here's the beautiful, amazing part. My goodness. When I read this the first time, I had to read it 10 more times. The body is like a bow to the arrow that is the soul. The DNA in your genes is the slinky which shoots up your soul at the moment called death. Just like an airplane requires adequate velocity, speed to take flight, in the same way the soul requires adequate velocity, faster than light speed, to break through the matrix of this plane. So, if one does not train one's body/DNA to do that through praise/service to divine, it is the waste of a body. Goes without saying, one gets a worse model each time one misuses. My God. I'm experiencing bliss just from reading this. My God. Okay. This is pretty self-explanatory. If you don't get it, read it 20, 30, 40, 50, 100 times. You can read this as many times as possible. You can read this till your deathbed. This is, oh my God. I can't even put it into words how much I love PT. So yeah, this little page perfectly illustrates everything, perfectly summarizes and illustrates everything that I just said in the first and the second, or this episode, about holistic self-improvement. He's the one. All right. And now we come to the rough part. Okay, we gathered all this knowledge. Now we know who we are, what the world is, how this thing operates. We understand all the metaphysical and physical concepts and how they relate to each other. We understand the concept of light and darkness and all that. But we still struggle. Why? What stands in the way of the spirit from escaping this material realm? What is it? So, oh my God. Yeah, I use biblical images here. So, free will, the greatest gift or the cruelest curse. As I said before, when I was showing you the model of the universe, here on Earth, we are free to choose whether we focus our consciousness on the lower, grosser things, or the higher, more subtle things, or even the pure, eternal things. So, since the fall, God granted us the ability to choose from good, or things that evolve us, things that bring us closer to the more subtle, eternal realms, and evil. Evil being live backwards. If you look at the word evil, it's just lived backwards. The etymology of it is like that. Hence, everything that does not promote the flourishing and maintenance of life. So evil, anything that doesn't promote the flourishing and maintenance of life. Everything that spirals you downward into grosser and lower and more complicated and misaligned states of being. We have the ability to choose. This leads us to experience individuation, since we are free to choose good from evil. Yeah, that's how we gain our autonomy. We're not just like robots that are, inherently good and cannot choose otherwise. We have the freedom to choose good from evil, and thus we create ourselves as individual beings through our actions and thoughts. But if we want to live up to our highest potential and break free from the cycle of birth and death, we must actively and consciously make good decisions, meaning decisions aligned with divine order. So evil is anything that goes against flourishing and maintenance of life, thus against divine order. And good is essentially anything that is in alignment with divine order and supports the flourishing and maintenance of life. Okay. So the number one thing that stops our spirit from escaping from the matrix is the mind. And to illustrate that, I would just like to read a few quotes from the Bhagavad Gita. So, in the 35th shloka of the 6th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, Lord Krishna said, "O mighty armed son of Kunti, it is undoubtedly very difficult to curb the restless mind, but it is possible by suitable practice and by detachment." So, we all see that the mind is restless. We have to do something. But as I said in the first episode, we have to find ways to regulate our minds and focus it. And we have to do appropriate practices to calm it. And we also have to be detached from this material realm in order for us to be able to escape from it. And constantly realize and reassure the fact that this is not our home. This is just a station, a temporary station from which we have to bounce upwards, preferably. Bhagavad Gita 6:26. From wherever the mind wanders due to its flickering and unsteady nature, one must certainly withdraw it and bring it back under the control of the self. So yeah, you could sense it. Even throughout this episode, my mind wandered, and I consciously brought it back to the control, under the control of the self or the spirit or my consciousness or my will. You have to, even if the mind flickers and goes off, you have to bring it back to the center of your being, to your conscious present self, and direct it towards higher and divine. Bhagavad Gita 6:6. For him who has conquered the mind is the best of friends, but for one who has failed to do so, his mind will remain the greatest enemy. And that's a pretty good, that's, oh my God, Krishna, my Lord, whew, the things he says are amazing. It's so true, because if your mind is under control, you can do anything. Well, you can escape the matrix if you can control the mind. But if your mind is not under control, you go to hell, because your mind takes over control and the mind is flickering and going in unsteady and just does whatever it pleases, and then it's just restless and it doesn't stop. I don't know if you've noticed that, but your mind doesn't stop. Like, your body rests. Your body is in a stationary position for like the third of a day, but your mind is always on. And if you don't consciously control it through yourself, through your will, it will just go off and take you wherever it wants to go. But that's not where you want to be. So your mind is your greatest friend and your greatest enemy as well, depending on your level of discipline over it. All right. And our next very, very big pitfall when it comes to evolution is the ego. We've all heard about the ego. We all know a lot of people who are narcissists and egotistic, but what is the ego really? Well, I talked about it in the first episode too, but I would like to give a little more in-depth explanation of it through two quotes. One from Sri Mataji Nirvana Devi from her book, The Metamodern Era, which goes the following. Ego and conditionings are created by mind, which is a myth. As we create the conditionings with our mind, it later controls our mind. In the same way, the ego and conditioning control the mind. Ego is a very dangerous disease with us. When this ego is inflated, a person feels as if he's on top of the world. One actually floats with this inflation of ego and never feels the pangs of unreal existence. This ego is very happy to hurt others and to say things that will make others absolutely miserable. It makes you do things which are very, very inhuman. Unless people introspect, they cannot see the villainous character of this ego. If somebody suddenly gets rich, his ego gets inflated further. Any kind of achievement or recognition can blow up this balloon. So essentially, our unsteady and flickering mind creates a false image of ourselves based on our achievements in the material world, which creates the kind of lens through which we view the world, and that makes us do things and that's a false belief. Like, ego is just a false belief of yourself, just not true information. Like, you having an ego in this sense is just you having a false perception of yourself and doing actions based on that false perception. And those actions are not grounded in reality, and those actions can hurt others and yourself as well. And unless you go back into yourself and introspect and ground yourself and realize who you really are, this ego can take a hold of you, taint your heart, taint your thoughts, and taint your actions, and thus lead you not upwards but downwards. Another beautiful explanation of the ego is Piti's in the book Scriptures from the Now. Piti's Peace Gita, Scriptures for the Now, from Prashant Trivedi. So, he says, Ego is simply the false knowing within one masquerading as real knowing. Yeah. Ignorance plus lie that one knows. So being ignorant to the fact of who you are and lying to yourself but that you actually do know who you are creates an ego, or just this imaginary inflated balloon of self-concept that's not true, which in turn leads to a non-learning attitude, which in turn leads to bad things happening to one called hell. So if you have a false belief about yourself, that you know that you are the boss when you're not, you don't want to learn from others. You don't have the humility to bow down to someone who you perceive as higher than you. Thus, you perform actions which are bad to you, which lead you to hell eventually. So, we have two options. Evil, which is misaligning with divine order, ignoring or willfully disregarding divine order, always striving to achieve meaningless self-appointed goals, so acting from the ego, thus lowering our levels of consciousness or coherence or spirit, and serving the desires of the ego / the senses or the mind. And I like to illustrate it by a Bible quote as well. So Galatians 19:21, the acts of the flesh are obvious: sexual immorality, impurity, debauchery, idolatry, witchcraft, hatred, discord, jealousy, fits of rage, selfish ambition, dissensions, factions, and envy, drunkenness, orgies, and the like. I warn you, as I did before, that those who live like this will not inherit the kingdom of God. So if you don't control your mind and your senses, and if you base your actions on the false notion of knowing when you truly don't know, you'll eventually perform one of these acts stated in Galatians 19:21, and thus you will not inherit the kingdom of God, or you will not escape the matrix. So this is option A. This is what most people do, to be honest. And then we have option B, is live, which is the opposite of this, which means aligning with higher/divine order, maintaining alignment with divine order, and consciously striving to be mindful of it. Always striving for improvement and evolution, always trying to do better, being more coherent, being more aligned, serving better, serving more. Growing one's level of coherence in spirit, well, that just goes with, you putting in the effort. And serving the higher good/divine. And I'd like to continue with Galatians 22:23. But the fruit of the Spirit is love, joy, peace, forbearance, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, and self-control. Against such things there's no law. So if you control your mind, if you stay humble and grounded in yourself, if you always strive to improve and align yourself with divine order and evolve yourself, and thus serve divine through that and help others evolve as well, your reward will be love, joy, peace, forbearance, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, and self-control. And if you maintain this state of being, you will be able to leave the matrix. But who in the world am I? According to the previous presentation and the Bhagavad Gita, Bible, Quran, and pretty much all the religious texts, at your core, you are spirit or consciousness. As I showcased before in this presentation as well, we come from the realm of pure principles. Our eternal abode is outside of this world of darkness, illusion, and repeating cycle of birth and death. We are consciousness itself. In the Hindu religion, it was believed that every human being has a reflection of God in their heart, which is the Atma, spirit consciousness. This is a quote by Shri Mataji Nirmala Devi from her book, The Metamodern Era. The ultimate goal of human life is to behave in a manner which God intended for us, thus living from the spirit instead of the flesh. So, living and not being evil. You will keep reincarnating on earth or other planes, hells, as long as you have behaviors, tendencies, and thoughts that are not in alignment with divine order, which are the actions of the flesh. I've extrapolated a little more on that point in the cosmology section of this video as well. So yeah, the question arises, how does one live from the spirit? How do you control your mind? How do you not fall into the traps of the ego? How do you live in alignment with divine order? How do you maintain alignment with divine order? And how do you serve divine actually? And what do you have to do in a practical sense to escape the matrix? Well, that's a question that will be answered in our next installment of the series. So stay tuned and find out. So yeah. Alright, this one was long and very, very, very insightful. And this presentation had a lot in it. So feel free to watch it 10, 20, 30, 100 times over again. And I'm going to share the document with you as well. And feel free to marinate these thoughts in your mind and think about it all the time. And just try to view your life through this perspective that I just showcased to you. And trust me, your life will improve. So yeah, I hope you got something out of this one. I hope you've enjoyed it. I hope I wasn't rambling and yapping too much. And I hope that it was collected and structured enough for you to actually understand it and integrate it into your own viewpoint or like own perspective on life. So yeah, thank you for joining me today. And I wish you all the best. May God bless your life and may you raise yourself. Peace, love. God bless. 1, 2.